The Tories can't stop lying about refugees, and Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick has finally been called out on it.
Even if somebody originated from a place of danger, such as Afghanistan, the vast majority of those people coming across on small boats are coming from France.
Yeah.
And they're choosing to come to the UK for whatever reason.
As is
they're
their
essentially asylum shoppers or economic
it is
migrants.
their right under the Refugee Convention to apply for asylum anywhere.
Well, the Refugee
Refugee
Convention also says that people should seek sanctuary, should seek asylum in the first safe country. And that's a really core principle that we as a government believe very strongly. We should be prioritising people who are in a place of danger rather than people who are in a place of safety like France.
That's not true.
That is a bad use of our national resources.
That is not true. The Refugee Convention does not say you must seek sanctuary in the first safe country.
The Refugee Convention does encourage people to do that.
It does not say you must seek sanctuary in the first safe country, which you just said. That's not true.
That's a key principle that we support as a government.
All right. Well, it's not
because
in the
we don't
Refugee
think
Convention.
it's right. We don't think it's right that if you're in a safe country like France, that you should be coming to the UK.
It's in the Refugee Convention that refugees should seek asylum in the first safe country. Then the interviewer, Christian Guru Murphy, quite correctly says, no, it's not. Robert Jenrick, who is the immigration minister, by the way, this isn't just someone who happens to have a different brief and has been put on as the government spokesperson, is a little out of their depth. No, this is a person whose job in government is to know a lot about immigration, either outright lying or completely wrong and misinformed. I think he probably knew he was lying because at the end he said, oh, well, no, this is a principle we think is very important. So he sort of moved away from this idea that it was in the Refugee Convention and saying, oh, no, it's a principle we believe in anyway, even if it's not in international law. Also worth noting that the reason this isn't in the Refugee Convention is because it would be completely dysfunctional. If you had, as international law, you should seek asylum in the first country you go through, then when there is a civil war in, say, Syria, for example, and 10 million people try and leave, or however many people tried to leave, it would be the case that all of those 10 million would have to claim asylum in Lebanon or Iraq, and then you'd end up with all of these asylum seekers in the same place, which is not going to work very well. If we were to have a sensible international law on asylum, it would be about sharing out people when there is a conflict in a particular zone. Because if you say, oh, anyone in a conflict zone has to seek refuge in the country next door, which, by the way, most of them do anyway. So most refugees are in the global south and they are in countries next to conflict zones. But the idea that every single person should claim asylum in those places next to the conflict zone, one, it's very unfair, but also, it's going to lead to such intense instability because as soon as you have a civil war in one place, you've then got millions and millions and millions of people arriving in the place next door. It would be terrible. So there's a reason it's not in international law. It's not just, oh, it's a bit outdated. They should have included that if they'd fought a bit more. No, there's a reason it's not there. A Downing Street spokesperson was asked about the interview by journalists today. According to The Guardian, Downing Street has effectively conceded that Robert Jenrick, the immigration minister, was wrong to say that under the UN Refugee Convention, asylum seekers should apply in the first safe country they reach, saying instead it is merely an important principle for the government. So they've confused themselves for the UN.
Having helped collapse the British economy, Michael, now people like Robert Jenrick want to basically create dozens of failed states around the world, We have failure in the NHS, we have a failure with the housing market, we have a failure with public services. Why don't we have loads of failed states? Let's really up the ante. Let's be a bit more ambitious in what we want to fail. If you have, for instance, refugees coming out of Afghanistan, they're all meant to go to Iran? Really? You got one failed state, let's have another. And then, of course, people leave Iran, let's say there's political instability, but they all go to Iraq. And of course, we know there's lots of people in Iraq. That country's unstable because of clever UK foreign policy. Okay, well, they all go to Syria. Oh, well, that place is unstable too. All those people go to Turkey. Okay, now Turkey has 150 million people. Just so stupid, so malevolent, so thick. It's a serious question. Is there a ladder here? I suppose it makes sense, right? Because right at the top, of course, is the climate. They want to fuck that up as well. They want to fuck up everything. NHS, housing, work, employment rights, public services, and then we go a bit higher, nation states, and then right to the top, climate. Cancel the species, the real cancel culture, brought to you by the Conservative Party. Credit to Christian Guru Murthy, he was prepared there. And I think the reason why people like Jenrick talk so loose and fast about legislation, which is not a matter of opinion, black and white, you're right or wrong, But the fact they talk so loose and fast about these kinds of things and these matters is because they generally feel that journalists are underprepared. And that's true. And I think it's a real credit to Christian Guru Murphy and Channel 4 that the caliber of their journalism meant that Robert Jenrick couldn't get away with it. There is a reason why most Conservatives and Boris Johnson avoided Channel 4 ahead of the 2019 general election. I suspect something similar may happen ahead of 2024 because they do their job.
It's also just such a ridiculous rhetorical maneuver, isn't it? It's like you try and steal a sandwich from Pret, you get caught, and you say, oh no, the law says that if you're hungry and it's half an hour before closing time, you're allowed to steal a sandwich. The law says that. And they say, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You say, no, it does. It does say that. The law says that. Then sort of 5 minutes later, you concede, oh, I was wrong. It's not the law that says that. It was me that thought that.